إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله سبحانه جل شأنه وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we resume this class in Hamawiyyah by the great Imam Abu Baaz Taqi Ahmed ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam Taymiyyah al-Harrani Dimashqi rahimahullah, who died 728 after the Hijrah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, with the time now 7:18 p.m. Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023, which agrees on the Hijri calendar, which is the 24th of the Hijjah, this day of Yom al-Arbi'ah, this day of Wednesday, where the year is 1444 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As we continue, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, you'll find that he mentions that book. This is where we stopped last class, everyone. We stopped at the book, or rather we were explaining what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned the athar, or from the tricks of the devil, is to now embark upon the thoughts of the servants of Allah in regards to their Lord. And we were talking about how Shaykh al-Islam mentioned certain people from the past who were upon tasawwuf. They were upon tasawwuf, meaning they were upon that type of affairs of deviation. But you'll find that those of the past who had not been affected by the current state of how the people of tasawwuf are in these current times, or these current days. And you'll find that from those people that passed, and this is what we were speaking about, his name was Amr ibn al-Makki. As you'll find that he was from those who were close to the scholar who's known as Junayd, who was also part of tasawwuf, but he was from those scholars that had knowledge of hadith of the past. And from them also was the great Imam Fudayl ibn Iyad rahimahullah. But this is where we stopped at last class in this matter of how the shaitan tricks human beings and the different types of traps that are set in order for the human beings to go astray. And like we said, keep in mind that Shaykh al-Islam was conveying a statement of someone who's upon tasawwuf, a type of those who's affected by tasawwuf of the past. How Shaykh al-Islam was utilizing their statements in order to establish the proof against those who deviated, in order to show that this is your scholar who you revere. Why are you not following him? Why are you not following him? And he says what is correct and agrees with the aqidah of the companions who are the Salaf. So let's read quickly what we mentioned from last class, from where we stopped, so we can be caught up, and then we'll continue in the chapter, inshallah. So his name, everyone, was Amr, Ayn, Mim, Ra, Waw, Amr ibn al-Makki. Amr al-Makki, or Amr ibn al-Makki. You'll find that the great Imam al-Dhahabi said about him, they said he was from Nudara al-Junayd, Kabil al-Qadr, that he was from the contemporaries and those who used to stick around, or if you want to say he was a companion of the great scholar Junayd. He says you'll find that he mentioned in his book called At-Ta'arruf bi Ahwal al-Ibad. He wrote a book entitled to be one being acquainted with the states of the servants and those who are worshippers. Acquaintance or familiarity, being familiarized, or one being acquainted with the different states of servants, meaning the human beings who are worshippers of Allah, and those who are devoted in worship. That was the title of the book, called Ta'arruf bi Ahwal al-Ibad wal-Muta'abbideen. The acquaintance of the different states of the servants and those who worship Allah. We said in last class, everyone, he has a chapter. This is where we stopped at. He said, Bab ma yaji'u bihi shaytan lit-ta'ibin. The chapter with the devil comes to those who make repentance. He says, وَذَكَرَ أنه يوقعهم في القنوط. He said, you'll find within his book, within this chapter, he mentioned that how shaitan, that he tries to get the worshipper to fall into despair and being in a state of hopelessness. So you'll find that the devil, he comes to the servant and he tries to get him to fall, or he traps him with the pitfall of despair, meaning giving up and not having any hope. So that is from one trick of the devil. He said, ثُمَّ فِي الْغُرُورِ وَطُولِ الْأَمَلِ. Or the devil will come to the human being and he'll try to get one to fall into being vain, ghurur, being amazed or self-amazement, and being astonished at oneself. So he even try to make one fall into being hopeless or being in a state of despair, or the devil will come to him in a state of being vain, meaning being self-amazed at oneself. And he'll also instill in one's mind tulul amal. Tulul amal. Tulul amal means putting off what is right for later. Like maybe one day I'll get myself together. And he'll continue to put it off and procrastinate until it's too late. So you'll find that he mentions in his book, Amr al-Makki, in his book speaking about the traps of the devil. Then he goes on to say, he says, ثُمَّ فِي التَّوْحِيدِ. He said, then you'll find that from the traps of the devil, he'll try to confuse him about the affairs of worship, meaning worshipping Allah alone. فقال من أعظم ما يوسوس في التوحيد بالتشكيك أو في صفات الرب بالتمثيل والتشبيه أو بالجحد لها والتعطيل. He said, from the greatest of how the devil whispers concerning the affairs of monotheism or worship of Allah alone by instilling in him doubt. Or he'll come to him about the characteristics of Allah by resembling them with the creation, or likening them with the creation. Or the devil will come in a manner in which he negates it and denies it, or rejects it. Meaning Allah does not have that attribute at all. He's not above, he doesn't have a face, and he does not have those attributes at all, which is a type of negation. Then he goes on to say, فَقَالَ بَعْدَ ذِكْرِ حَدِيثِ الْوَسْوَسَةِ وَاعْلَمْ رَحِمَكَ اللَّهِ أَنَّ كُلَّ مَا تَوَهَّمَهُ قَلْبُكَ أو سنح في مجاري فكرك أو خطر في معارضات قلبك من حسن أو بهاء أو ضياء أو أو إشراق أو جمال أو شبح مائل. This is where we stopped at last class. Now listen to this great statement that he made, everyone. And I want everyone to be attentive of this great statement that he makes here. He said, for verily, in the chapter, after he mentioned the topic of the shaitan whispering to the human being, trying to set up all these traps for him in order for him to fall into one of them. Then he goes on to say, have knowledge, may Allah have mercy upon you, that everything that your heart tries to imagine, كل ما توهمه قلبك, everything that your thoughts, your thought process tries to imagine or fathom or have the false impression of, or everything that flows in your thoughts or your ideas, or what comes to the thought process of your mind, of anything beautiful or anything great or anything of great light or something that is radiant or something of great beauty, or some type of so-called shabahin ma'il, or some type of ghost that passes, or a human being that comes in the form of something. For verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not that. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater, and He is the most mighty and majestic, far above of what your mind can imagine. No matter what it is or how great you think in your mind that Allah is of what you can imagine or put in your thought process, except that Allah is greater than that. Do you not listen to the statement where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, nothing is similar to Him. And also the ayah, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ, there's nothing similar to Him. Then Amr al-Makki, he goes on to say, لا شبيه ولا نظير ولا مساوية لا مثل أولم تعلم أنه تعالى لما تجلى للجبل تدكدك لعظم هيبته والشامخ سلطانه. He said, nothing resembles Allah. There's nothing that resembles Him. Nothing similar to Him. Nothing equal to Him. Nothing like Him. He said, do you not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now listen to this, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested to the mountain, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested Himself to the mountain, He said that it disintegrated due to the greatness of His haiba, the greatness of how He is subhanahu wa ta'ala, the greatness of His authority, tabaraka wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la yatajalla li shay illa ndak, which the story of what happened with Musa, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to look to the mountain, which is a Surah Al-A'raf. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa, you will not see me in this world. However, look to the mountain. And if the mountain stands in its place, then you would have seen me. So Allah revealed Himself, of you'll find in the athar of the Sahaba who mentioned that what Allah manifested the mountain of what we would understand, even though nothing resembles Allah, that Allah revealed of what we would understand within our minds as similar to a fingertip. And the mountain disintegrated. So فَكَمَا لَا يَتَجَلَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِلَّا الدَّكْ, which is the proof that if Allah was to manifest to anything of the creation in this world, it would what? Decimate. كَذَلِكَ لَا تَتَوَهَّمُهُ أَحْدٌ إِلَّا هَلَكَ. He said similar to that, now listen to this. He said similar in this world, that what happened with Musa, because Musa fell out unconscious, as we know in the story of what happened in Surah Al-A'raf, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested to the mountain, it disintegrated until Musa fell out unconscious. Now listen to what he goes on to say. He says similar to that. Now listen how he correlates this with this benefit that we're going to mention now. He says similar to that of the mountain, how it disintegrated. He said similar to in this dunya that no one can withstand the sight of Allah. He says similar to this world of those who try to now fathom how He is and imagine what He is subhanahu wa ta'ala, except similar to that in your mind, if you try to understand that, you will be destroyed. So outwardly, you can't see Allah in this world, nor in your mind of trying to imagine how He is, except you will still be destroyed. He said, فَرَدَّ بِمَا بَيَّنَ اللَّهُ فِي كِتَابِهِ مِن نَفْيِهِ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ التَّشْبِيهَ وَالْمِثْلَ وَالنَّظِيرَ وَالْكُفُرِ. He said, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mentioned in His book, فَرَدَّ بِمَا بَيَّنَ اللَّهُ فِي كِتَابِهِ. So those who try to now imagine how Allah is, that person that does that, who tries to now put in their thought process the true reality of how Allah is, who tries to imagine how Allah is in their minds, they are rejecting of what Allah has clarified in His book, of what He has negated from Himself, of anything being similar to Him, or any likening to Him, or anything of a partner with Him, or anything that resembles Him. All of these affairs are rejected, and those who try to now put in their mind of how Allah is rejecting clearly what He says in His book about negating from Himself anything that resembles Him. So then he goes on to say, فَإِنِ اعْتَصَمْتَ بِهِ مِنْهُ عَفْوًا وَامْتَنَعْتَ مِنْهُ أَتَاكَ مِنْ قِبَلِ التَّعْطِيلِ لِصِفَاتِ الرَّبِّ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى وتقدس في كتابه وسنة رسوله محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال لك إذا كان موصوفا بكذا أو وصفته أوجب لك التشبيه فأكذبه لأنه اللعين إنما يريد أن يستزلك ويغويك ويدخلك في صفات الملحدين الزائغين الجاحدين لصفة الرب سبحانه. So then he goes on to say that from the tricks of the devil, he says, if you now gain protection, of course by holding on to the book of Allah, and now you refrain from falling into this trap that the shaitan has set, he said he'll come to you somewhere else. So the shaitan gives up from that aspect of entering in your mind. Now he tries to come at you in another way. He says, ataka min qibal at-ta'til. He'll come to you from the aspect of negation. Negating Allah's attributes. Glory be He, may He be blessed and high, subhanahu. He says you'll find that shaitan would now try to come in the aspect of negating what Allah has affirmed in His book and in the sunnah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And the devil will say to you, he said, فَقَالَ لَكَ إِذَا كَانَ مَوْصُوفًا بِكَذَا أَوْ وَصَفْتَهُ أَوْجَبَ لَكَ التَّشْبِيهِ. The devil will say to you, if Allah has a description of such and such, or you described Him with such and such, it would necessitate that Allah is likened or resembles the creation. So it's upon you, O so-and-so, to just negate it. Because if you affirm this, you have to resemble Allah with the creation. And he said that if the devil comes to you and put this thought process in your mind, then belie him, فَأَكْذِبْهُ. Deem him and believe for certain he's a liar. Reject his notion and declare him to be a liar. لِأَنَّهُ اللَّعِينَ. Because he's the one that has been cursed, and he's the one that makes you want to fall into these type of what? Affairs or these atrocities. وَيُغْوِيَكَ وَيُدْخِلَكَ فِي صِفَاتِ الْمُلْحِدِينَ. And he wants to now tempt you, mislead you, and enter you in the characteristics of those who deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the one who falls into atheism. Mulhid. The characteristics of those who are mulhideen. The characteristics of those who deviated in regards to the affirmation of Allah's names and His attributes, of those who deviated and denied His characteristics. So you'll find, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, that from these affairs are all from the plots of the devil. As you'll find that he described this in his book. So you'll find of all the different types of great atrocities in regards to Allah's names and attributes and His worship, how the shaitan has set up so many traps for the human being. And the only way he can avoid these type of pitfalls is to have knowledge of his enemy. And this is the type of thoughts that he instills in the human being's mind. So let's just read quickly some of the affairs of the explanation of this particular statements that the great Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah conveyed upon Amr al-Makki. So let's explain some of what he mentioned. So we said a couple of minutes ago, he says that there is nothing you can imagine that comes in the thought process of your mind. كل ما خطر فيما يعرض على قلبك من حسن أو بهاء أو ضياء أو إشراق أو جمال أو شبح ماء. There's nothing that could come to your mind of the most beautiful thing, or the most radiant thing, or the most enlightened, or the most beautiful. To the end of the statement, he said that these are the affairs that the shaitan has instilled in those who deviated, especially from those who are from the ignorant ones upon the path of tasawwuf. He said, الَّذِينَ كَثِيرًا مَا يَزْعُمُونَ أَنَّهُمْ رَأَوْا اللَّهِ. Now listen to this. He says, especially for those who claim that they've seen Allah, or they've seen Allah in a state of something very beautiful, something very radiant, وَبَهَاء. وَفِي بَهَاءٍ لَا يُشْبِهُ الْبَهَاء. وَفِي ضِيَاءٍ مَلَأَ الدُّنْيَا. He says something radiant or beautiful, to the point nothing radiant was similar to what they seen, as they claim. Or some type of light, something that was enlightened, of great light that filled up the world. Or he said, وَإِشْرَاقٍ مَلَأَ عَلَيْهِمْ مَنَازِلَهُم. Or something that was radiant, that it filled, the light filled up their homes or their residence or what have you. Or something of a so-called ghost that was real enlightened in some type of way, that filled up the room. Or something that they so-called seen or vision or an epiphany or what have you. Or something they seen in the door with these different lights or these different lanterns. He said that all of these are the affairs of the devil. الشيطان يقول لهم هذا ربكم أو نور ربكم من جمال يفوق الجمال. He said you'll find that the devil will say that this is your Lord, and this is the light of your Lord, and this is his beauty, that there's nothing more beautiful than that. He says, or the shaitan can now trick you where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifests in the state of a human being. شخص يتمثل لهم. That he came in the form of a human being. Similar to how the Christians believe in regards to our Prophet Isa ibn Maryam, that Allah became in the form of a human being. Or he came in a state, or he came in some type of something that was so-called a state of a human, or some type of other manifestation so-called. وَرُبَّمَنْ يَقُولُ لَهُمْ أَنَا رَبُّكُمْ. And that thing that they so-called saw will say, I'm your Lord. وَقَدْ قَالَ ذَلْكَ الشيخ عبد القادر الجيلاني المعروف. He says, similar to how the Sufis of those who are upon the deviant sect from the Sufis called Al-Qadiriyah, where they claim that they follow the great Imam Abdul Qadir Jilani, rahimahullah, in which he was known for a lot of worship. And he was known to have a lot of karamat. He was known that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him those karamat, meaning those extraordinary affairs that happened at his hands, that he would make dua and something that was out of the norm would happen. He was known for that. However, you'll find that they went into the extremes, and to the point, like we said, that the devil came and put an image in the minds of the Sufis, raising him above his level and coming to some of them and actualizing these type of images in their minds, and to the point where some of them thought that he was above, either at the level, so-called, of what they thought he reached the level of Allah or greater. He says, أَنَّهُ مَعْرُوبِ الْكِرَامَةِ يُقَالُ إِنَّهُ جَاءَهُ الشَّيْطَانِ. That the devil came and he said that I'm your Lord. So you'll find that the devil can even come in the form of righteous people. From them was this great Imam Abdul Qadir Jilani. And during the time of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, some of the people would say, we seen you. And Shaykh al-Islam would say to them, that was a devil you saw. Because he was in another place. He says how the devil can come in the form of images, in the form of people who are even righteous, and trick the people, and try to get them to raise these individuals above their level. And he will come in these type of images to trick the people until they fall into great disbelief by saying, this individual is your Lord. Or he'll come in an image that's so-called radiant and blossoming or blooming and say, I am your Lord. And you'll find that what happened with Abdul Qadir Jilani, rahimahullah, where you'll find that in this other, that he said that an image came to him. And the devil tried to trick him. He says, in this thing that came, said to him, verily, indeed, I have removed all the duties from you, of the prayer, hajj, and everything else. Until the point where he knew that there was a devil. So you'll find that as soon as he said that, he knew immediately there was a devil coming in order to what? Instill these type of ideas until he falls into great disbelief. He says, and this, similar to this, is exactly what happened to the majority of the Sufis of today, that claim that they have reached the level of Allah, or they have reached where they directly communicate with Allah, and they don't even need the sunnah, the message of Allah, until the point where all the duties of Islam, they've been relieved of, or relinquished of. Similar to all of that, of the obligations, been removed. And anything that was forbidden, they can what? Embark upon doing it. So these type of affairs and events that had taken place, especially with the great Imam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, fatana lahu. He said you'll find that he was intelligent enough to have knowledge that that type of image was a devil, in order to make him fall into some type of major disbelief. لأنه إن كان من العباد لكن عباد على علم. He says even though he was someone that was known for knowledge, for great diligence in worship, however, he just wasn't a worshiper. He was someone that had knowledge, until he realized that image that the shaitan came in, that it was a trick in order to get him to fall into that great disbelief until he becomes from the inhabitants of hell. So the point where Abdul Qadir Jilani realized the trick of the devil, and to the point where he cursed him. And when in that instance, the devil had what? Went away. And he fled away. Because he knew the trick. And you'll find that the devil said to this in the end, this is where we stopped that last class, everyone. He said, وَلَكَ خَاطَبَهُ فَقَالَ لَهُ. The shaitan said to him, سَلَمْتَ مِنِّي بِعِلْمِكَ. You were safe from me due to your knowledge. So look how the devil came in the form of something that was very radiant, something that was very beautiful, something that looked very appealing and alluring, and how the shaitan set up these traps. Shaitan أخطر ما يكون على العباد على الجهل الذين يعبدون الله على الجهل وعلى ابتعاد من أهل العلم. The devil, he is the most dangerous upon the worshippers that are upon ignorance. Those who worship Allah upon ignorance, and they're far away from the people of knowledge. وَرُبَّمَا اتَّهَبُوا أَهْلَ الْعِلْمِ أَنَّهُمْ جُفَاةٌ. He said perhaps he will even instill in the minds of the worshippers that the people who have knowledge are dry. All they do is just worship, all they do is want to teach, but they see they have no diligence. No diligence in what? وَأَنَّهُمْ فِيهِمْ قُصُورٌ. That they have some type of what? Lax. Being lackadaisical in worship. And they don't worship how you worship Allah. You don't see them doing much, do you? Until the point where that the shaitan allows them to what? Be far away from those circles. Because the shaitan knows that through knowledge, his plot will be exposed. And those who follow him from his minions and his soldiers will also be exposed their plot. He said, مَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهِ بِالْأَذْكَارِ الْمُبْتَدَعَةِ وَبِالْأَوْرَادِ الْمُحْدَثَةِ. Which as a result of it, due to knowledge, when the people start to educate themselves and sit in those circles, you'll find that as a result of it, those innovated so-called remembrances of Allah that they do, and those innovated types of remembrances of Allah in which their so-called shuyukh had newly invented and introduced for their so-called followers. Until the point you'll find that it's decorated, these type of practices, and they'll start to have bad thoughts of the true people of knowledge. Until the people do not even want to draw near the true people of knowledge, nor the people of the truth. Rather, they'll go far away from them. Similar to these days we live in now. Those who are, or have, by the fadl of Allah, the knowledge in order to expose the plot of the devil, the people have gone far away from them. And now they're falling into the plots of the devil until they become a farisa. They become now the victim in which the shaitan puts his what? Fangs in order to pluck them off. So now once he's put the bad thoughts in the minds of the people of the truth, and he gets you now to be far away from those circles, now he's able to take advantage of you and play with you like a toy. يقول الشيخ عمر بن عثمان. He said you'll find that Amr ibn Uthman, he's talking about Amr al-Makki here. He said no matter what is the thought process in your mind, O servants of Allah, no matter what type of thought process or idea that is put in your thought process about Allah, of how he looks or how you might think, كل ما رأيته وتوهمته في قلبك أو ظهر لك شبح أو شخص. No matter when you try to think how Allah is, no matter what type of idea you put in your mind of how Allah is greater than that. Allah is far above what your mind can even think of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. من أن يرى في هذه الأشياء أو يتمثل بهذه الصور وَبِهَذِهِ الْأَشْبَاحِ, more than what you can think of what these affairs are, or what you can so-called describe of an image, or these so-called ghosts, or whatever it is. Allah is way above that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in His book, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, nothing is similar to Him. And everything in your mind is something created. No matter what you try to think of how Allah is, there is nothing similar to that, even if it's the greatest thing your mind can imagine. مِنْ أَبْلَغِ التَّنْزِيهِ هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ, nothing is similar to Him. Allah negates it clearly and completely. Everything that you try to so-called توهمته ورأيت أو سمعت, everything you have, you try to now fathom or see or hear, all of it, know for sure, is from the whispers of the devil, in which he wants to instill in your mind to make you fall into disbelief. Similar to that, on the day of resurrection, the people will be tested. Everyone will be tested on the day of resurrection, and Allah will come to the servants and the closest image of what they thought how He is, in order to test them to see if they will what? Fail the test. حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ مُتَمَثِّلًا فِي شَخْصٍ. He said these type of tests were made in this dunya by the devil. And similar to that, on the day of resurrection, Allah will come in the closest image of what the mind thought it was as a test. But however, these type of tests is from the whispers of the devil in this world that he tries to put in the mind of how Allah is. To the point you'll find that the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad Aman Jami, he says, rahimahullah, he says, فَاللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ مُتَمَثِّلًا فِي شَخْصٍ أو شَبَحِ شَخْصٍ. Nothing is similar to Allah, to the point that you would think He would come in a so-called manifesting Himself in a form of a person, or so-called ghosts of a person, or no matter who it is or what it is. We have the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ikhlas, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. Nothing is similar to Him. There's nothing that resembles Him, nothing equal to Him, nothing similar to Him. No matter what your heart can think of or imagine, or what it is in a matter of how, except that all of that is from the devil whispering to you. وَكَأَنَّهُ لِأَنَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى لَا يُرَى فِي الدُّنْيَا. Know for sure that Allah will not be seen in this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described in the authentic sunnah that He has the hijab of light. As with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had saw that night when he went up to the seventh heaven and journeyed to where no human being has journeyed. And that night in which he went from Mecca to Palestine, and then he rose, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam until He addressed him directly. You'll find that after that narration, as we know everyone, in the end, as soon as he arrived, فَسُئِلَ فَوْرَ وُسُودِهِ هَلَ رَأَيْتَ رَبَّكَ. He says immediately when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrived, Aisha had asked the Messenger of Allah, did you see your Lord? The Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam said, Nurun anna arah. He said, light, how could I see him? Hijabuhu nur. His hijab is light. Also, the story of the Masih al-Dajjal, the one-eyed liar that will come. And it seemed like the days that we're living in, that the stage is being set for his release soon. And Allah knows best of when that will be exactly. That is from the affairs of the unseen. But we know that there will come, the affairs will turn in the manner in which the people are being prepared for his release. However, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in regards to him, in his description, to know that he's not your Lord, and rather he will be from the greatest of the devils in this world when he's released, because you know he will try to do to get the people to fall into major polytheism by saying, I'm your Lord. However, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a description in order to teach his followers that when he comes, know that he's a liar because of what, everyone? تَعَلَّمُوا أَنَّهُ لَنْ يَرَى أَحَدٌ مِّنْكُمْ رَبَّهُ حَتَّى يَمُوتَ. He says, learn and have knowledge that none of you will see your Lord until you die. So anyone that tries to claim rububiyyah of Allah, that this is your Lord, know for sure they're lying. Because no one will see Allah until you die. إذن ينبغي قطع الطمع في محاولة رؤية الرب في هذه الدار. فموسى حاول أن يراه فلم يره وخاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين في تلك الليلة العظيمة التي ظهرت له عجائب وغرائب لا مثيل لها في الدنيا مع ذلك إنما سمع كلام ربه ولم يره. He said, hence it's incumbent upon everyone to stop and cut your hopes in trying to see Allah in this world. In this world, as you'll find that from the greatest of human beings that deserved, if they was any human being that deserved to see Allah, it would have been the prophets and messengers. Look at what happened with Prophet Musa. He tried to see, and he asked to see Allah, he didn't see him. The seal of all prophets and messengers, the greatest of all the prophets and messengers, and that great night in which he seen very astonishing and amazing things, nothing similar to what is seen in this world. And despite of that, the Messenger of Allah heard from the greatest of affairs. What is those great affairs that the Messenger of Allah heard? He heard Allah's voice. Sami'a kalam rabbihi. He heard the voice of his Lord, which is tremendous. And despite of that, he didn't see Allah, but he heard his voice. وَأَخْبَرَ أَنَّهُ لَا يَرَاهُ أَحَدٌ حَتَّى يَمُوتُ. Until the Messenger of Allah informed and said that none of you will see Allah until you die. وَهَذَا الْكَلَامَ عِنْدَ التَّحْقِيقِ يَشْمَلُ الْيَقَظَةِ وَالْمَنَامِ. You'll find that the great Imam Muhammad Ahmad Jami, he said this very important point here that I want everyone to memorize if you're able. He says, what is correct from this speech? He said, عند التحقيق, which is from the text that one would extract, that no one will see Allah while they're awake or while they sleep. يشمل اليقظة والمنام. While one's awake, nor while they sleep. وإن ثبت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رؤية ربه تلك تحمل على أنها خصوصية وما يحكى عن بعض الأئمة أنه رأى الله في المنام لا يثبت شيء من ذلك. He says, even though it's been affirmed that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم seen his Lord, of course, the ru'ya qalbiyah of his heart, and it was from behind the hijab, and it was light. He said, for verily that was only specifically for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and for some of those a'imma that seen, or so-called, that was been narrated with a weakness in the chain, that some of the a'imma that they seen Allah in the dream or while they were asleep, he said nothing has been affirmed of that in the sort whatsoever. All of these affairs have been what? Affirmed. And then you'll find from the great benefits of the great Imam to show his humbleness and respect for another great elder and esteemed scholar of our religion, Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baaz rahimahullah, about these particular narrations. And he leaves it off from here by saying, it says, in some of his lessons, he says, in which I attended, he says, verily, you'll find that the great Imam Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baaz rahimahullah, he said, فَقَالْ إِنَّ الْحَدِيثَ عَامْ فِي الْيَقَظَةِ وَالْمَنَامِ. Verily, these narrations that no one will see Allah until they die is general for when you're awake and sleep. وَالرُّؤْيَةُ الْمَنَامِيَّةُ مَنْفِيَةٌ. He says you'll find that the vision of Allah in the dreams or while one is asleep is negated. He said, for those of the affairs you'll find that he summed up. He said, وعلماؤنا كالشيخ عبد العزيز بن باز لأنه من المحققين في وقتنا هذا حفظه الله وزادنا وإياه من العلم والعمل. And this is where we'll stop, inshallah. So we'll stop here, inshallah, and we'll continue next week. Don't forget, everyone, tomorrow, 7 o'clock, is the Muqaddimah of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. Will be tomorrow. So we resume the class with alhamdulillah. So let's move forward and not allow the devil to waste our time on nonsense. What's your question?
Who was that narrated by? I would like to look him up. Who you just read from? Was he a scholar?
We're reading from the book called Hamawiyyah by Shaykh Taymiyyah.
What's his name? I'm sorry.
Let me end the class and I'll give it to you after we finish. Okay? We'll stop here, inshallah, everyone. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.